Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to a Monday morning. I had to double check, as usual. Welcome back to Adobe Live. My name is Joe Allam, and today I'm joined by landscape photographer Thomas Heaton. Tom, how you doing?
I'm
You
all
good?
right, thank you. Yeah, Monday morning. I wondered why I felt so out of it, tired, and a little bit sort of, amiss with everything. Of course, it's Monday
I,
morning. Yeah.
I was almost about to say it was Tuesday, and then I realized no, we've not done Monday yet. So let's tackle this together. Welcome everyone to Adobe Live. If you're watching this via YouTube, that's cool. You can carry on and check in and follow along as we go through some editing and landscape photography. But if you'd like to join in with the chat, then hop on over to behance.net. We've got a chat ready and waiting for you. And we've already got some people in there. So good morning, good afternoon to Sandrine, Dia, Andreas, Tim, Oliver, and yeah, plenty more people hopefully to join as we go through. And just let yourselves known in the chat. And yeah, we can run through this. So Tom, you are a landscape photographer based in the north of England. We actually go back quite a few years. I think we started a YouTube channel around the same time. However, we only properly met in person a matter of weeks ago, really, a couple of months ago. So yeah, if you'd like to just give a brief rundown of who you are and what you're
A brief
about.
rundown of our relationship. Yeah, I think we started YouTube at the same time, roughly. And I remember you got in touch years ago. My gosh, I don't even want to think about how long it was because then that just shows my age. But yeah, I think you got in touch in about 2016. But yeah, I've always been a photographer since leaving school and not having a clue about what to do with my life. I'm sure we've all been there, and if there's any younger people watching, I'm sure you too are faced with that feeling of dread when you think, oh my God, what am I actually going to do with my life? Well, I left school, and my English teacher at the time said, Thomas, what are you going to do after school? And I said, I really don't know. And she said, what about media studies? And I thought, oh, media studies, does that involve watching television? She said, yes. I was like, great, I'm in. So without even thinking about it, I enrolled at college, my local college, on the media production course. I had no idea what I was signing up for. And literally, I just needed to do something because I had no future plans. And it turned out to be the best thing I've ever done because I learned about filming. I also learned about photography, developing film in the dark room. And all of a sudden, I had this creative outlet, which was this Canon AE1 film camera, 35mm. And oh my gosh,
up on my shelf.
Have you got one on your shelf?
Right here.
Oh, yes.
Actually, it's the A1. This is Ellie's film camera. But, yeah. Beautiful device.
Yeah, 35mm. I shoot medium format film, and I've been thinking about getting a 35mm film camera, and I think, well, if I shoot medium format, it feels almost like a step down, because I like that large film plane that you get with a medium format. But then I was thinking of it'd be nice to have a Hasselblad X-Pan, which is 35mm but shoots panos.
Nice.
Yeah, because at the minute my pano camera is it's a little bit hefty. The size of this thing, it's massive.
Absolute tank.
Yeah, but I love shooting panos using film because there's so many scenarios where you cannot shoot a panoramic using a digital stitch. Basically, if anything's moving in the frame. So anyway, but what was I saying? Yeah, always been into photography. And just more and more, I tested the water with every genre: portrait, weddings, products, fine art, not fine art, still life. And then just found myself being drawn to nature photography and outdoors. And then one day I just made a YouTube video in 2013 for no other reason than I couldn't find what I was looking for on YouTube, which was basically a behind the scenes landscape shoot. There was nothing really out there. So I made it, and that was it. Never really looked back since.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant. I mean, that in itself is pretty much the same reason I started my channel. Is like I wanted to see behind the scenes of photography out and about and, leading towards commercial work and like urban photography and things like that. And no one was really doing it. And so I just made what I wanted to watch. I continued to make what I want to watch. And yeah, I think that in itself is like a core passion that just kind of keeps the channels feeling fresh, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's really important if you're going to take your photography onto YouTube, which is a viable option if you want to become a professional photographer in a niche whereby it's difficult to get paid work. Like landscape photography is difficult to get paid commissions. Not impossible, but certainly difficult to do it consistently enough to make a living. But now with the birth of social media, and especially YouTube, you can make a living doing anything that you're passionate about. But I find, like you said, I only make videos that I want to watch, which is why you very rarely see me make a video which is kind of like, giving advice, like you should be doing this, or here's what you're doing wrong. Trying to frame a video in a way that is educational or giving tips. I mean, I know that's valuable, but I think if you're going to do educational content, it needs to be long form and in the come in the shape of like an online course or something where you can do modules and really learn. So what I do is I just continue doing what I've always done, which is simply document my time in the field with a camera. And yeah, it seems to, the formula seems to work well because every video is different, because every photo shoot is different. And I find that people get inspired by it and watch my videos and then want to go out and shoot their own images, which is great.
Definitely. You kind of learn by reading between the lines. You see, as you're making things, you see the things that are maybe done slightly differently to how someone else would approach it. And you think, oh, okay, well, I learned that. You didn't explicitly tell me that. I just saw, how you did something. And maybe we might discover that with some of your editing styles today. So should we hop from the darkroom into Lightroom and see what we got? So we've got this image that I'm looking at already. I'm going to hazard a guess that this is a film image.
It is.
Am I right in thinking that?
Portrait 160 shot on my Hasselblad, which I don't know where it is. No, I don't know where that is. But yeah, it's a medium format square film camera.
Nice.
So yeah, I mean, these images aren't in any particular order, but here's the thing: when you guys reached out to me and asked me if I wanted to come and do an Adobe Live, I was a bit like, oh, well, the truth is I don't do that much editing. Certainly not enough to sustain a 1 hour tutorial. So I guess what I'll talk about is the editing that I do, but what's so important with landscape photography, and I think a mindset that everybody should have, and I hope I don't get in trouble for saying this with Adobe, but man, it's all about what you do in the field.
Yeah.
Like post-processing is a big part of photography, but it should always just enhance what you've already taken and should never really dramatically change and alter what you've captured. So I say if you get good conditions in the field, good subject, good composition, then like nature is doing the processing for you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if you get good light and a good subject, you don't need to do much. So I would say the biggest the biggest tool that I use to improve my photography with post-processing is the clone removal tool. Like I tidy up my images. If you look at my work, it's very, I try to go for a very clean look, very minimal, simplistic, not too much in the way of, very, very straightforward. You know what the subject is. It's not busy. It's not chaotic. It's peaceful. And to be honest, there's not an awful lot going on. And a lot of that, well, in fact, all of that is subject matter and, of course, the conditions in which I'm shooting. Yeah. So I guess we'll go ahead and look at the processing that I've done. I mean, this, for example, this was shot on film, Kodak Portrait 160. And when I edited, or when I got this image scanned and edited it, I was really, really happy. You know, I got very lucky with the formation of the sheep and the snow that was coming down and everything. But the enemy of my photography is distraction. So anything that is distracting from the image, I want to eliminate. So if I go ahead and open this in Photoshop so we can look at the layers, I can show you exactly what I've done to this. So let's have a look.
Just immediately looking at this image, it looks like a sketch, like the snow that's coming in.
Well, that's why I love shooting in heavy snowfall or heavy rain or mist and fog. It gives a lot of separation.
Makes everything take about, what, 3 times longer than normal as well?
Yeah, definitely. So here's the image. You can see actually it's a little bit darker than the Lightroom version. So I do with film, I tend to do most of my processing in Photoshop, and then I get the final Photoshop image, pop it into Lightroom, and then I might do some additional changes, like just to slightly adjust the brightness. But so we've got 3 layers here, so not a great deal. We've got the original file here, which is the background image, and then we've got the sharpened image. I do my sharpening in Photoshop, and it's literally just a smart sharpen, which gives a very natural look. And then I've got a curves layer here, which would just be to brighten the image. But the main thing I've done to this, if I delete or hide this sharpen layer, you should see the original image, and you can see what I've done. So there we go. I'm going to switch it on and off and look at the difference. So we've got like here, this little bit of ground where the snow has been, I think the sheep actually dig it away so they can graze. And then we've got this thing here, which is like just a rogue twig or something.
Yeah.
But this was the big problem for me. This is all sheep poo. So the sheep have done their business, and I couldn't ideally I would reposition myself. So I try and do everything in the field, everything as much as possible, from using filters to positioning my camera in a way to eliminate distractions. But sometimes there's nothing that you can do. So I'm looking at this thinking, oh, that completely ruins the shot. But then just with a clone removal, I can hide these distractions. And there's always this conversation about where the line is with processing and editing. Like, where is the line? My personal opinion on everything is that if somebody wants to be creative, I'm never, ever going to talk down to that person and tell them they should or shouldn't do something. The fact that somebody's out there creating something, whether it's with the camera and then with Photoshop and Lightroom and blending all these different images and you know, that's fine. That's somebody being creative. The problem I have is when they try and pass it off as being genuine. Like if I dropped in a big sunburst coming out of the sky here and then tried to tell people that that's what it was like on the day, that's a bit misleading. But my general rule is I have no problem removing things that if you were to be stood in this position where I was stood and you were looking at the photograph here as a print, would you be able to tell that I've moved something? So if I was to move this tree here, I would say that's a step too far. That's manipulating the landscape. But if I was to remove something like a vehicle, if there was a van parked on the hill here, I'd move that. You know, this bit of sheep poo here, no problem moving that, because it's just general housekeeping, I think. And then
I guess the rationale there is if it's not a permanent fixture, if it's not something that is, you know, in the same way that if you're doing portraiture, a lot of people have the rationale of you know, blemishes on your face. If it wouldn't be there in a week or two, then you can feel comfortable removing it. Whereas if it's a permanent feature of someone's face, then that feels like a step too far to change it and remove it.
Yeah, like I've removed aeroplanes from the sky. I've removed people walking past in the background. I've removed bits of broken branch and twigs. And I'd rather do that in Photoshop than actually go ahead and move it physically. I don't mess around in that way. So yeah, obviously I haven't moved any sheep or any trees or anything because they're all fixed and part of the landscape, and I try and capture what I'm seeing. My aim is to witness these beautiful scenes and then capture them. I don't necessarily want to create the beautiful scenes. I just want to capture them.
Yep.
So yeah, that's a good example. I mean, that would say that's like 95% of my processing.
And then even in terms of the crop, so this was shot on a square film, right?
Yeah, so this is square, so this hasn't been cropped. But I do crop a lot. I mean, if I go back into Lightroom, let's have a look here. So this is another example. This has been cropped because this was shot on my GFX 50R. So originally this would have been a 4:3, but you can see what I was going for. Very clean lines, and minimal. This is an abstract image that's all about the shape and form. But I can tell you, I think there was two or three things that really destroyed this image, and I'll show you the original file, which is here. So let me zoom in here. Hang on.
Like a rock or something.
Yeah, so there's this rock on the edge, and I think this here was a piece of litter or this white object, and then we've got this log. Now, I don't have a problem with a log being on the shoreline, but the problem I have is that it's on the edge of the frame. So here we have 1, 2, 3 things that for me just break up the beautiful shape of this shoreline. So in this instance, how do I improve the photo? Well, I'll just clone out those 3 items, and then they don't distract from the scene. So yeah, no problem doing that at all. I don't think it changes the scene dramatically. I think it would have been different if I'd have gone ahead and maybe tried to change the shape of this or something. Or, but yeah, for me, I look at an image and I think, okay, what is distracting me from what I'm looking at? And a good technique, actually, for any photographer out there is when you open an image on your computer, make your eyes go blurry, so you kind of squint.
Yep.
And then when you're looking at a squinty, blurred image, things jump out, distractions that you otherwise wouldn't necessarily see. So that's a great example of the tools that I use.
And with that rock and that log, is that something that you noticed at the point you took the image?
Oh,
or
yeah.
you noticed it afterwards?
No, I noticed it. I was cursing. I was thinking, if only they weren't there. Especially the rock. The log wasn't too bad, but that rock just broke the shape of the line.
Yeah.
I thought, that's going. No
so then
problem.
you also have a sort of mentality if you're not going to disrupt the landscape, you're not going to change it for your image. Yeah. No,
I would rather not. I don't want to go and move a rock or, if it's litter, I'll go and pick litter up, of course. But no, I'm a big believer in just leave no trace. Try and leave as little sign that I've been there as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
there's a friend of mine, he lost his lens cap somewhere. I think we might have been in London or something. He just lost it in his bag. And he's like, I know exactly where there are hundreds of lens caps, and it's all in the Lake District. Have you ever come across other photographers' sort of tracks on things?
Yeah, I've come across photographers' lens caps many times. Yeah, I always pick them up. Might need them as a spare one day.
Yeah.
The worst for me is bluebells. So in the springtime, you get blooms of bluebells, and I've not really shot too many bluebells, but I tell you what, I've seen like the way that some photographers behave, and they'll just trample a field of bluebells to get in their position. And I think if you've, like, what is a photograph worth? If it's snow, then that's not a problem. You're walking over snow. Oh, it doesn't matter. You've messed it up a bit. But if you're literally just squashing bluebells that don't really need to be squashed, you got to answer. You got to question whether or not you should be going and taking that photograph. I photograph bluebells and very, very carefully pick my way through them. But I heard one story one instance, I was chatting to a photographer. This was quite a few years ago. This was in North Yorkshire, and it was bluebells. And we were photographing these classic bluebells at a place called Rosebery Topping. I might actually have an image of it on here if I can dig it out. But he was telling me that what one photographer did was take an image of these bluebells and then trample them so that nobody else could get the same image. Now, I don't know if that's true.
Wow.
I don't know if it's true, but that's what he said. I think that's quite extreme behavior. I don't know of any photographers that would ever do that. But
yeah, that's a bit chaotic.
yeah,
It's almost like if I can't get it, then no one can get it as well.
exactly.
Like if you messed up your image.
Yeah. So yeah, I prefer to do my trampling in Photoshop afterwards.
Yeah.
Removing things because I just feel guilty. If I change the landscape. I mean, I've stepped in mud before and left a big boot print in some mud, and I thought, oh, was that? Maybe I shouldn't have done that. I don't know. So yeah, I try and leave as little trace as possible.
We've got a question in the chat actually about how do you decide, I guess this is a two-part question. If you're shooting film, how do you decide that you're going to have a black and white day? Or if you're editing digital, how would you decide that an image would be potentially better in black and white?
So I'm fairly new to shooting black and white with film. I mean, if we go to this image here, this was shot in black and white. The great thing about shooting black and white on film is that you are committed, which is great. Yeah. So it's all black and white photography. What I'm learning is it's all about contrast. And if you start thinking of the world in black and white, it opens up photography massively, because typically as landscape photographers, we shoot at the beginning of the day and at the end of the day. If it's bright sunshine, middle of the afternoon, typically we wouldn't go out and shoot. But if you go with the mindset of shooting black and white, then during those conditions, you get that high contrast. So when I shoot black and white, I look for contrast and minimalist scenes, so more abstract, more shapes rather than complete texture and lots of detail. And here's one example here. Very clean lines, middle of the day, stormy skies. I use an orange filter. This river here, this inlet is this is in Scotland, so this is really blue water. And if you use an orange filter, it makes blue tones go very dark.
All right.
It makes yellow, warmer tones go brighter. So I knew that the sand would render brighter and the water would render darker, and then you've got your contrast. So black and white photography is all about that contrast. Yeah. In fact, Joe, we went out and shot last month, I think it was, and I shot black and white film. And again, a similar thing. We had bright sunshine and snow. And again, this is sort of what I'd look for with my photography: high contrast. Yeah. So bright sunshine, shadows, simple scenes.
Yeah, one of my favorite things that I like doing with mirrorless cameras actually is setting the EVF to black and white, because it just gives you an extra advantage to go and see your scene based on the light. And you end up, I don't know, you just, for me anyway, with urban stuff, just walking around looking at a city, you see things differently. You kind of see how the light enters the buildings and other things because your viewfinder is black and white. And technology allows that to be easier today. And then of course you've got the flexibility to then see it back in color. But doing it blind as you are with analog is, I can imagine, quite a learning process.
Yeah, well, that's
Has there been a lot that's gone wrong for you?
Yeah, always goes wrong with film, but that's part of the learning process. I mean, the great thing with shooting film is it teaches you to see the landscape and really engage with the landscape. Because when you shoot digital, you can kind of open you have your LCD screen on, you've got your histogram, and you can dial it up, dial it down, and you can see the changes real time, and that's really advantageous. But when you're shooting film, you don't have that, so you have to look at you have to understand what you're photographing. So you have to understand dynamic range, and you have to understand tonality, and you have to understand color and how that's going to react with the type of film that you're using. And again, black and white just takes that to the next level. You've got to see the landscape in tones rather than colors. Because it's funny when you look at the landscape, and you've got greens and blues, you've got a massive contrast between green grass and a blue sky, but you convert that to black and white, and the greens and the blues are almost the same tone. So you've got to not seeing color but seeing tone, and if tones are the same, your black and white image will be very flat. And if you can see that you have contrasting tones, then that's when you're going to get a powerful black and white image. But again, I'm new, I've not shot much black and white film. And in terms of digital photography and converting it to black and white, that is, again, it's usually, to be honest, is an afterthought. I'll be looking at my image in Lightroom, and then usually I don't like the colors, especially if there's a lot of yellow light. Then I'll just convert to black and white and start working with tones rather than colors. And it's pretty it's intuitive, I suppose.
Mentioning here from Sean, interested in the light meter that you use, or maybe your experience with light meters. Have you tried multiple out?
I have 2 light meters, Sekonic, which is great but is overcomplicated, and then I got I invested in a Kickstarter, which was this light meter. I'm not sure where it is. It's a tiny light meter that you hold up to your eye.
Okay.
But you don't look through it like a traditional light meter. It's almost like a RoboCop type thing. So you have to have both eyes open, and you're looking at your subject with your left eye, and you're getting a meter reading with your right eye. So you feel like a cyclops or something. Anyway, it's what's it called? I can't remember the name of it. But no, my main light meter is a Sekonic. And it's great. I just use spot metering, and then I can evaluate the entire scene. And then the brightest part in your scene, the darkest part in your scene, and then the range, the tonal range, and then the film that you're shooting, can that handle that range? If it can, great. If it can't, you need to start thinking about using filters to balance out the scene.
Right. And then in terms of getting to know the range of the film, is that something that you've just built through experience, or is there
typically
resources?
The information is out there. So, if you're shooting slide film, like, let's have a look here. This was shot on Provia, which is a positive slide film. And what that means is when you take an image, you get this image, this is what you get. There's no negative. You get what looks like a piece of plastic with this image on it. And it's beautiful because when you look at it on a light table, what you see is what you get. They're very difficult to edit. You can't really make many changes. Everything's locked in. Now, this film has a dynamic range of about 4 stops. So not a great deal of dynamic range. So you get that high contrast. So here the sun was rising behind me. So I knew that everything I was shooting was balanced, and there was not 4 stops, or certainly maybe 4.5 stops of range in this scene. Actually, you can see the blacks here, the shadows, the sun here that are completely black. But that's okay. There's a lot of mystery in the shadows. And I find that some photographs I look at where they've lifted the shadows too much, I always find that a bit off-putting. Don't be afraid of blacks. Don't be afraid of, deep blacks, because they hold a lot of mystery and contrast. So I knew that the film would handle this and would actually render it nicely. It would bring out the contrast and the colors. Whereas another film like Kodak Portrait, like this one, has like a dynamic range of about 15 stops. So crazy.
Very flexible.
You don't need to worry about it. You don't even need to meter. You can just point and shoot and it'll capture it. So that's quite good. But this is a negative. I much prefer shooting positive film because it's just more satisfying.
Yeah. There was a time when cross-processing of slide film with with negatives was like a common sort of
Really?
style. I don't know if you've ever tried that. I'm not sure if it would really work for
How
landscape.
would you do that then? You'd have to have 2 film backs.
Yeah, so I think effectively you're just processing with, I mean, I don't know the liquids. It's been a long time since I've, in fact, I don't know if I've ever actually developed slide. But yeah, you effectively use the wrong liquid by intention. And things like your blues end up a little bit more yellowy. Yellows end up a little bit more blue.
Oh, so when you say cross-processing, you mean developing slide film with negative chemicals? So like
Yep.
C41 instead of E6, I think.
Yeah, something like that. And I imagine it was probably a happy accident that happened at some point.
Oh yeah, without
but
it's like putting diesel in your petrol car.
Yeah.
But it drives faster. It's like, what? Yeah, probably. Well, no,
Yeah, so
that's cool.
it's quite a fun thing. It could definitely be overdone, but likewise, if you built your career off of that style, you could find yourself getting hired for a particular aesthetic. I guess in the same way that there's like infrared photography. I'm personally not a fan of the images that come out of infrared, but I appreciate
I
the
fancy
way that
that's
the
what I
light
fancy
looks.
doing this summer. I'm gonna get some
Okay.
infrared film. I thought about getting my XT3 converted and have the infrared filter taken off it, which I might do. But yeah, infrared film on a summer's afternoon with leafy green trees. Yeah, I love it. I think it looks pretty cool.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Yeah,
it's like
I've seen
intense black and
plenty of
white.
people who've done it for drones. They've gone and modified them so that
Oh,
their
really?
drone then captures infrared. And then not only have you got a different visual perspective because you're up in the sky, but also the colors are like, red and white and wild.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's a good
very, very
idea.
interesting.
Yeah. Cool. Maybe we should look at some more editing instead of just don't want
Yeah.
to stop moving on to drones. So yeah, I do very little post-processing. I mean, let's have a look here. You can see my settings on the right. It's typically exposure and then highlight, shadows, whites and blacks, which give it contrast. But as I've mentioned before, nature does all the work for me. Like this was such a beautiful morning. This was on the top of a mountain in Scotland, and the sun just came over the horizon and just started to kiss the trees that were on this. This is like a mound. So I'm above the trees looking down. You see all the trees in shadow in the background. And then the higher trees on the top of this little hill, they were catching the lights. And this was in the middle of autumn. So, the colors are incredible. They're so rich and vibrant. And you can see my vibrance, I've only increased it to +10. I've done nothing else. And in fact, if I create a virtual copy here and then reset this, I mean, that's the raw file. So I guess the biggest thing I've done is a crop. I think I've done a 1:1 crop and just pulled it down, which is the beauty of 50 megapixels on that medium format Fuji. But this is the raw file, and this is what I mean about nature doing all the processing for you. Look how the light is catching the shape of these trees and just lifting them out. It's a very abstract image. Again, my goal with my photography is to capture moments like this and not necessarily create them afterwards. So I just use Photoshop and Lightroom to enhance my photography. So not definitely. A great deal needed to be done here.
Do you remember if you used any or what particular filters you might have used at the time of taking
Any
this?
what, sorry?
Any filters on your lens?
For this one, yes, a polarizer, if I remember rightly.
And that would have just sort of softened the bark, I guess, reflecting back.
Yeah, it gives me more color because these leaves here, they're quite waxy and they tend to catch they tend to reflect the sky overhead. So they look a bit washed out and a bit white. So by adding a polarizer, you effectively get rid of the glare on all of these leaves. So you get the rich color of the leaf rather than a washed out version of the leaf, which is reflecting the sky.
Yep.
Polarizer is a great tool. Let's have a look here. I mean, this image.
There's a question in here of just asking what long GFX lenses do you use? What tele options do you have? Or that
I have a
particular image
100 to 200.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the problem with Fuji. The GFX, they don't really have much in terms of reach. I think they do a 250 mil. I think. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think there is. Yeah.
I think it's big, like really
Yeah.
big. And that is the downside of the GFX system. Like I would love like a 100 to 400 or something like that equivalent. You simply can't get that. You can get teleconverters, so you can get like a 1.4 extender.
Okay.
But I thought about buying one, but I don't know if that's enough. I don't know if it's worth the expense. We'll see. But yeah, coming back to this image, this is a great example of just again, nature doing all of the processing for me. I mean, if you get conditions like this, you don't need to do anything. I literally, what have I done here? Typical highlights, shadows, whites and blacks. That's it. I've done, got my crop.
Do you ever play around with your tone curve at all, or is that something that is a no touch for you?
Oh no, I do. Yes. Tone curve for me is a preferred way of brightening an image because you can just lift the mids without affecting the highlights and shadows too much. But again, this instance, it didn't need it. But actually, I tend to use, I don't know why, but I tend to use tone curve more in Photoshop than in Lightroom.
Okay.
Just weird, just force of habit, I suppose.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm trying to see if I've done anything. Nope, nothing to this image other than just a few basic adjustments here. Again, nature's work, nature doing all the work for me, which is
What was that shortcut you just did to show the what did you click on?
So this is the clone removal tool.
Do you hold
and then down here, spot removal, and we've got a little box down here that says visualize spots. When you click that, you can increase the intensity of like actually there we go, a couple of dust spots up here, one there that can go. So you can't really see these on the image itself, but yeah, again, this is something I probably should pay more attention to, but basic housekeeping. There we go. See that? You couldn't see those spots, but you may well see them if you print the image. So if you're going to print a photograph, pay close attention to dust and spots, because
definitely
you'll probably see them on a print more so than you would do on a screen.
Yeah. So it's kind of it's the same as if you hold Option and then any of the sliders, that creates that same contrast view. But I hadn't seen that on the spot removal. I didn't realize the little tick box.
Yes.
So thanks for that. Appreciate it.
It's okay. Let's look at this image. This was a great moment. This was just, I'd specifically come to this location for this light, because this is a big valley and you got the sun streaming through and all of this is reflected in the water. But if we look at the changes I've made to this image, I think, so this is my final edit and this is the raw file. So what I've done basically is I've taken this image into Photoshop and I've tried to enhance 2 or 3 areas of the image. And one is to lighten this boathouse or this pumping station. So this is the before. You can still see it, but I've just brightened it up. In fact, I'll open this in Photoshop and we can have a look.
What time of the day was this taken?
This is just at sunset, so probably about.
Ah, okay. 15. I was thinking it was a morning shot. I remember seeing this in your video, and I couldn't remember what part of the video it was in.
Oh, I think my internet connection's gone a bit wobbly.
Oh no.
It's okay. As long as you can still hear and see me, but I missed what you said. So another tool that I like to use is dodge and burning. So all dodging and burning is making areas of the image either brighter or darker. So what I've done is I've got this layer. There's this plugin called Lumenzia. It's a third-party plugin that I use with Photoshop. And what it allows you to do is it allows you to select areas of the image based on the luminosity, so the brightness or the darkness. So I've created I've basically selected the light midtones. I'll show you now. So any area that's white is an area that will be affected when you paint a brush on it. So it creates a mask essentially. And let me.
Presumably, this is a paid plugin.
Yeah, it's not much. It's a one-off payment. I think you pay about $30.
Okay.
And you get this plugin. So if I turn off this layer, this is you can see it's very subtle. The big thing with photography and processing is just gently. Don't overdo anything because you'll regret it afterwards. But yeah, I've made this cloud brighter and I've made this boathouse brighter. So just like that, you see the difference as I turn it on and off. So I'm just adding contrast by illuminating these areas, and that's it. All of the color, all of the light was 100% natural. In fact, I might have had to tone it down a bit. I can't remember. But yeah, so the way I achieved this was, let me show you. Let me do you an example. So light mids one. So basically it's selecting areas of the image that are sort of lighter mid-tones. And then you tell this plugin that you want to create a dodge burn layer. And now I've got this layer here. So if I select my paintbrush.
That mask alone,
white,
if you were to do that manually, that would
be a mess.
So long, because that is a detailed looking mask.
Yeah, it's incredibly detailed. So if I paint this dark area, nothing. There's no change. If I paint this cloud, see it getting brighter.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's more than it needs to be, but it literally only affects the pixels that are light midtones. It's essentially like paint by numbers. Do you know what I mean? Like, you can't go wrong. You can't mess it up. It's an incredibly accurate, detailed, fast and easy way of, making areas brighter and darker without getting that horrible halo that you get if you just try to paint, paint it manually. And then
there's mentions in the chat if we can see that mask actually. Is it hold command or option on the...
Someone might have to tell me how to do this. You can. Let me see if I double click it. No.
If you hold...
All right, what have I done?
You click those ones. The arrows. Close that down and then back to your layers on the right.
Oh, God, yeah. There we go. Right, what do you do?
Hold option as you click onto that.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, so there's my mask. So obviously the lighter areas will be affected. The dark areas, anyone who understands masks, won't be affected at all. So yeah, you can go in. Oh, that was black, not white. So yeah, you can make areas lighter and darker. Not like that. I'm just messing up this mask. So yeah, I mean, I'll do it with another image. Let me do another example. See what we've got here, because this is my favorite Photoshop. Two things. One is clone removal, because the clone removal tool in Photoshop is excellent.
Yeah.
And the other is this dodging and burning. So let's have a look here.
So effectively, Lightroom is like primarily is organization and cataloging.
Very much so. Yes. I mean, to be honest, like if the image doesn't need much doing to it, I will, not every image goes into Photoshop. Photoshop is for the fine detailed work. So the clone removal and the dodging and burning. So I'm looking at this image here. It's okay, but there's one thing straight away that bothers me, and that is this. So you can see, I always look at the edges of my frame, and anything that's just kind of creeping in is a real distraction. So I will go in and have no problem at all just saying goodbye to that. That's gone, right? So that's that problem dealt with. Now let's look at, this doesn't need too much dodging and burning, but let's have a look as an example. Let's say I want to make the highlights brighter. So I've got my panel up here, my Lumenzia panel, and all I'm going to do is tell it to select, I don't know, let's look at light mids 1, so light and mid tones, and see if that, that gives me some separation, but not quite enough. So what if I just go mid tones, or mid tones 3, mid tones 2?
I can see there's that slider on the right as well. Is that, do you have a finer control if you drag that? Uh-oh. We've got a frozen picture. Oh. Oh dear. All right. Well, I think Tom's internet might have. Oh.
Right. You know what? This happens. I'm gonna say don't go with Virgin Media. Am I allowed to say? This happens on a regular basis. Sometimes my internet just dies. But I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to put on my hotspot, because my landline or my Virgin Media is so bad that my telephone, the hotspot on my phone, gives me better internet. Yeah, bear with me.
Well, amazing tech that can pull us together pretty impressively. I always think in these types of situations, how hilarious that would be if it happened in real life. You know, you're just in a meeting room and someone just disappears. You're like, they were just here. What happened?
Poof, gone. Let's have a look.
Well, the images so far, yeah, very much enjoying your process, or rather the theory behind it, because as you've mentioned extensively, the digital process is not really that involved, but it's the physical process that led to the fact that you don't have to do too much digital processing, which I think is really interesting, and it's something that I guess more people should really try and work towards, because even if you do want to do more digital processing, the upfront work, if you do the legwork on that, will make your digital life so much easier if you want to push it further as well.
Yeah, I think I got most of that.
Yeah. It's also it's good to see in the chat a few people recognizing that plugin and using it as well, finding a use case for it. I think you may have even shown some sort of like further use to it than may not have been realized originally.
Yeah, I hope so. Can you still hear me and see me?
Can hear you. Can't see your screen.
All right, hold on. Let me share my screen again. I think we've probably lost the share screen as my internet just dropped out. Okay, are we back?
It will be there in just a moment. There is a question we've got, which is actually coming over from YouTube, asking if you edit on the go whilst you're traveling, or do you work on all of your images when you get back?
Yeah, I try not to. Sometimes in a state of desperation, usually when I have to, well, there's two scenarios where I'll edit on the go. One is if I have to upload a YouTube video. So if I'm out in the field and I'm behind on my YouTube videos and I've got to edit a video, then I'll edit on my laptop. But no, I like to edit on my computer at home because it's a much better environment, bigger screen.
Yeah.
And sometimes if I'm really excited about an image that I've taken, I'll do a quick edit on my laptop and then post that on social media. But no, typically I tend to want to work at home because it's just, I like to take my time and really consider my processing. It's one of the best things you can actually do, what I found. And I don't know if you work this way as well, Joe, but when I edit an image, one of the most powerful things you can do is to edit your image and then just leave it for an hour, leave it for a day, come back to it again. Even when you think you've done, just come back to it with fresh eyes and you'll start to notice things. You're like, oh no, that's too dark or too much saturation. The amount of times I've put out a YouTube video then regretted the image that's in the YouTube video because I've made maybe edited it too much in a rush and too much saturation or something. So yeah, that was a long-winded answer, wasn't it?
I definitely believe that. There was actually a thing that that I heard about from, I think I might have shared this on the stream before, but is heavily talked about at Disney Pixar, and that is the 20-20 rule. And it's every 20 minutes at least. Look at something for 20 seconds more than 20 meters away. And just by doing that exercise for your eyes, it sort of relaxes them and allows them to just see something different at distance. And then when you come back to your screen, it maintains your concentration. But the beauty of it is you just, within those 20 seconds, you come back and you think, what have I been working on? These are the wrong colors. These are the wrong things. And it's something that I try and do myself, which is why I'd always want to have a desk that has a window beside it and just open the blind, have a look out at distance, and then close the blind and go back to color work and things like that.
Yeah, definitely. Another good thing to do is flip your image upside down and look at it that way.
Yep.
Yeah, because then you see it less for what it is.
Yep.
And you see it more in terms of a collection of shapes and colors and tones. And then any distractions will be more apparent when looking at an image upside down.
Yeah. It's kind of like when I used to work in design and we'd print out the mock-ups and you put it on the wall and you just walk past it and you see it. But the difference that you find when you put it on the floor and you look at it from a height, you spot everything that's maybe wrong with the UX of a site. You're like, oh, that's not noticeable. But as soon as you zoom out and see it from further away, you look at it completely differently.
Yeah.
I'll try spinning my screen or spinning my image and see how it looks.
Yeah, it's good. It's good technique. Right, where was I? I was creating a dodge burn layer. So I've selected my midtones, tell this to create a dodge burn layer. And now I know that if I want to brighten up these highlights, I can do that without affecting other tones in the image. And it's all very subtle. You spend a long time doing this. This is obviously just a very quick go. But yeah, essentially I'm able to add contrast by brightening the midtones whilst not affecting any of the shadows. And again, it's all subtle. If you see too much of a change, then you've probably overcooked it.
And so the mask is doing most of the work here, and then on that layer, you're literally just using your dodge and burn tools directly.
Yes. Yeah, just my paintbrush with whites and blacks. Sometimes I'll add a bit of color into my whites, so I might add a bit of a warm orange. My brush, I have my flow set to 2%. That's really important because you just want to slowly paint it on. And then
do you ever use a tablet, like a Wacom tablet or anything?
Yeah, I've got a Wacom tablet here, but I'm not using it at the minute for this live stream. But yeah, tablet's a really good way because you can intricately, and also tablets are pressure sensitive, so it's much more like painting. So the harder you push down, the more flow you get from your brush. But yeah, that's a quick example. Probably not the best example, so I don't think this image needs much dodging and burning.
No, I mean it's interesting to see because so many textures there in that image, and being able to work directly on the areas that you want without affecting the areas you don't. So what's that plugin called again? Lumenzia.
Yeah. I think
I'll check that out. It looks good.
Yeah, this image is another good one that I've used Lumenzia on. And again, I think it was just to enhance these trees. So we can see here I've got 2 dodge burn layers. The top one is to darken down. Basically, you got these beautiful patterns, these striations on the hillside here. And I just wanted to enhance them. So you can see here they look a little bit washed out. So I've created this dodge burn layer just to darken down the shadows, basically adding a bit more contrast. And then this dodge burn layer here is purely to lift these trees. So the light is just catching these birch trees. It was incredible. I don't know how the light was catching the trees, but not catching the hillside. Like, it was incredible. So just to enhance that, I've created this layer here. Let me see. Hang on. How do we do it? Option. What? Sorry, how do we?
Hold Option and
go.
click on the
There we
mask.
go.
Yeah.
So you can see the trees here are light, which means they'll be affected when I paint them. And if I turn the layer off, it's so subtle.
Yeah, very subtle.
You probably can't. It just pops a tiny bit. Let me go
It may not
in.
even show up on the YouTube compression, possibly, because we're going via Zoom and then via live stream. But it's there. I can see it.
I mean, I can see it. I'm looking at a 5K monitor. So this is the way I work: is subtlety, subtlety, subtlety. You know, lots of minor changes make quite a big difference. Again, nature's done all of the work for me. You know, nature has painted these trees. I didn't need to do much really afterwards. So
Tim's actually just put in the chat, these invisible effects are my favorite type of effects. You never know they're there unless you saw the original. And I think that's the direction that most sort of most, I guess, professionals and nitpickers galore want to get to is the details.
One thing I got taught in college when doing media production is you will never ever notice a good lighting man, a good director of photography. Like good light, you shouldn't be able to see good lighting on a film. Do you know what I mean? It should just look entirely natural. If you
I think
see it, then
special effects is one of the best areas of that. Like some of the best special effects are in films you wouldn't necessarily say they had special effects, but as soon as you see the effect, that's when you'll make comment being like, oh yeah, but the special effects weren't good. You never say it for the ones that you didn't notice.
Yeah, so that would be my takeaway for anybody watching this is landscape photography is supposed to be observing nature and capturing those moments, those split seconds in time, where the light just catches the trees, that kind of thing. And then you use the tools of Lightroom and Photoshop just to enhance that, just to, polish the file. Because a raw file by its very nature is designed to be very flat and capture a full range of tones, and you just bring it back. So that's my approach, is minimal editing to try and tidy up images, keep them natural, and just enhance what happened on the day.
Yeah, I think that's a brilliant way to sum up your work and to sum up what we looked through on the stream today. So we are just about at time. So thank you, Tom, for showing us through your workflow. It's been very insightful, and there's been plenty of intrigue, I think, and seeing behind the scenes on stuff. Coming up this week, so we have tomorrow, we have Mohammed Shaheen, and on Wednesday we have some illustration and masterclass with Raquel Costa. So plenty to come up. We'll be here on Behance 12 o'clock midday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, every week. So thanks for showing your workflow today, Tom. Look forward to seeing future videos and other stuff.
Yeah, apologies for my internet dropping out. Our video that we shot together, that's coming out next week, so that'll be good.
Oh, nice. Yeah,
I enjoyed it. It turned out well in the end. I'm happy with it.
Excellent. Great. Well, thanks for joining, everyone, and we will see you some other time soon.
Yeah, thanks,
Ciao
everyone.
for now.
Bye.
Bye-bye.